Welcome back to another Filler Friday where I teach you how to play a game in 10 minutes or less. Or maybe more. But we'll see. Today, I'm excited to teach you how to play Bristol 1350 from Facade Games. I absolutely love the line of games that Facade Games has released, and over the next few weeks, you'll probably see me covering a few of them. So, let's put 10 minutes on the clock and dive right into it. Bristol 1350 is a game for 1 to 9 players and is definitely a blast at higher player counts. In Bristol 1350, players attempt to escape Bristol during the plague, but being able to escape isn't enough. If someone on your cart already has the plague, you'll surely be doomed to suffer the same fate unless you can figure them out and kick them off your cart before you leave the city. To set up, lay out the mat and place the 3 carts in their starting positions indicated by the colored spaces. White is for birch, red for cedar, and brown is for oak. Have each player choose a character card and give them a pawn matching that character's color. For this, I'll be using the Lady, Outlaw, Earl, and Bard. Shake the matching pawns in the bag. Pull them out randomly one at a time and place them on carts front to back according to the table found in the rulebook. This is a 4-player game, so in the end it'll look something like this, with 2 players in the birch cart and 1 in both the cedar and oak cart. There are 2 sides to your character cards, a standard side and a special action side to use with experienced players. For this how to play, I'll be using the standard side, which just depicts the 3 different actions you can take on your turn. Take the symptoms deck with this back and remove any card numbered with a 4. Shuffle the remaining symptoms and give 2 to each player face down. Players can look at their cards, and if anyone was dealt 2 3s from the start, they should show the group and be given 2 new cards. Basically, you just don't want anyone starting with symptoms equaling a 6 or more, because that would mean that that player has gotten the plague right off the bat, and no one really wants that. So, by setting it up this way, it'll ensure that everyone begins the game with symptoms totaling 5 or less. Next, reintroduce the 4s back into the deck and shuffle it to create a new symptoms deck, which will be placed in the space indicated here. Players may never show their symptom cards to other players. Shuffle the remedy deck with this back and give players an amount as indicated on the table in the rulebook. In the case of a 4-player game, each player will get 1. Place the remainder of the Remedies deck in a pile at the top of the board. Like I mentioned, in Bristol 1350, if at any point your 2 symptom cards add up to 6 or higher, you have the plague for the rest of the game, even if your symptoms later fall below 6. Bristol basically hinges on the fact that everyone is willing to play fair and be honest at the end of their time in Bristol about whether or not they had ever had the plague. For that reason, you must avoid contracting the plague at all costs. But if you do get it, then your new objective is to make sure that none of the healthy players win. You can accomplish this by making sure that each cart that crosses the finish line is either empty or has someone with the plague on board, with the trick being that you can't physically show other players your symptoms to prove whether or not you have the plague, but you can lie to your heart's content about being healthy. A game of Bristol happens over a series of rounds. In each round, any player rolls all 6 dice for the group. Then, starting with the player whose pawn is at the front of the cart furthest ahead, which for the first round is considered to be the player at the front of the birch cart, and then proceeding clockwise, each person takes a turn. On your turn, you may perform 1 action from the following list of actions, which can also be found at the bottom of your character card. You can re-roll any 2 dice. When doing so, be sure to leave the other 4 dice as they were from the initial roll or the previous player's turn. The 6 dice that are showing at the end of each round affect cart movement and Mingles. These will be explained in just a moment. If you have no interest in rolling any dice, you may instead decide to draw a remedy card. These cards allow you to perform special remedy actions on future turns or even on the turn that the card is drawn. There is a hand limit of 3 remedy cards though, and players with 3 cards already in their hand are not allowed to draw for their action. The third and final action you can take on your turn is pawn movement. Pawns can be moved in the following 3 ways. You can elbow your opponents. When doing so, move your pawn in front of all other pawns on your cart, making sure to shift pawns that had been ahead of you 1 space back. You can dash. When performing a dash, move your pawn to the back of the cart in front of yours. However, you can only dash ahead to the next cart if you're already at the front of the cart that you're currently on. Pawns that are on your former cart slide forward to take up the empty spot. If the cart at the front of yours is full, just swap your pawn with the pawn at the back of that cart. And lastly, for movement, you can push a pawn off of your cart. You can only push yourself or someone sitting 1 or 2 spots behind you on your cart. The pushed player must place their pawn at the back of the cart that is furthest behind that has an open seat. Pawns that are on the pushed player's former cart slide forward. If by chance you are pushed from a cart and there are no openings in a cart, or you are pushed off the cart in last place, unfortunately you're left behind and are out of the game. I guess people just don't trust you for some reason. However, and this is the part I love, if you were pushed off a cart and end up being left behind and you reveal that you do not or did not ever have the plague, then the player that pushed you dies of shame and is out of the game as well. You'll notice that the dice have colors matching that of the carts, and they also have different symbols on them. At the end of each round, before the carts are moved, if the final dice results show 2 or more rats for a particular colored cart, then everyone on that cart must mingle. Normally, all of this would be done with the cards face down, but in order to show you how this works and how easily a player can get the plague, I'll be showing you the face values of the symptom cards. All mingling cart mates must add each of their 2 symptom cards to their cart's mingle area by the board. 1 random symptom from the deck is also added to the cart's mingle area unless someone already put a card there by playing a leech's remedy on their turn, in which case that card is added instead. Mix all cards in the mingle area and deal 2 to each player on that cart and discard the extra card face down. If your 2 new symptoms add up to 6 or greater, you now have the plague for the rest of the game. If you already had the plague, it doesn't really matter which card you receive, since you still have the plague. Whenever the symptoms deck runs out, shuffle the symptoms discard pile to reform the deck. If there is only 1 player on the cart, they still are required to mingle when 2 or more rats are rolled for their cart. Either way, after all players have taken their actions and mingled, move each cart, even the empty ones, forward a number of spaces equal to the colors of the final 6 dice results. Taking a look back at the dice, we would move the birch cart 3 spaces, the oak cart 2 spaces, and the cedar cart 1. Keep in mind that the cart only moves at the end of the round and not during the initial roll or player's rerolls. If multiple carts end on the same space, the cart that started the round farther ahead is nudged slightly ahead of the others, while still remaining on the same space. This will indicate the order of the 3 carts for the next round. Begin a new round by rolling all 6 dice and taking turns, starting with the player now at the front of the first cart and proceeding clockwise. You'll continue playing round after round until the game is over. Before we get into winning the game, let's quickly talk about remedies. All remedies, except for the whip, can be played on your turn and are played after and in addition to your main action. Each remedy card has 2 potential uses, but is discarded immediately after being used for its top or bottom action. You can play any number of remedy cards on your turn, and you are allowed to play a card that you drew in the same turn. If you run out of remedy cards, gather the discard pile and shuffle it to form a new remedies deck. Much like your symptoms, you may not show your remedy cards to other players unless they are being played. Now, as for winning the game, each time a cart leaves the town, all players on that cart must reveal if they currently have, or if they had ever had the plague. If everyone on the cart is healthy, everyone on that cart wins together and the game is over. If anyone on that cart has or has ever had the plague, everyone on that cart dies and play continues until an all-healthy cart crosses and ends the game. If play continues after a cart has crossed, dice results for finished carts do nothing. Players who die at the finish line or during the game must truthfully reveal their state of health, and they may no longer take turns, or play remedy cards. Once the first cart escapes the city, the gates begin to close, and any carts still in the city have one additional round to escape. If they do not, they are trapped in the city and automatically die. If all 3 carts cross with the plague, do not finish in time, or are empty when they cross, anyone who had the plague wins. What we just covered is how to set up and play a game of Bristol for 4 to 9 players. There are also rules for 1 to 3 players that can be found on pages 9 and 10 of the rulebook. Further to that, there are also 7 optional game modes that can be combined and added to the standard rules to give you more replayability to your game. But there you have it. That was how to play Bristol 1350. Go ahead and smash that subscribe button and ring the bell to get notified on any future videos. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Links for everything in the description below. But until next time, thanks for watching, and happy gaming.